This video is about motivation, time management, and budgeting. You might be a HSC student or a couple trying to work out your finances or anything else. But you might also wonder, how are all those things linked together? Are you just going to talk about 3 different random topics? No, not really. They are quite linked in the way that I'm going to explain it today, as I take a bit of a different approach now. There's a few financial people in my family, and since budgeting is one of the biggest things that brings young people and couples unstuck, it's been a really important topic for me to try and work out well to help support people with in counselling. And I've noticed that there's a lot of correlation between how that can be done effectively and the managing our time better, and neither of those things work without motivation. So that's kind of how it ties together. So let's start with motivation. To be able to get some productive work out of yourself, you need to have purpose. Some of the things that make us happy in life are family and relationships, meaningful work or study, and a positive attitude, as well as giving to others, forgiving, faith, exercise, sleeping, eating healthy, a balanced amount of recreation. But you can see the main ones are quite obvious: family and relationships, meaningful work or study, and a positive attitude. So if you don't know what you want out of life or out of your time, you don't know what career you want to do, you don't know where you want to be next in life, then just pick whatever starting point there is already available to you. It might be that in 20 years' time you want to have your own kids and a house and live by the beach. Fantastic. It could be that when you retire you want to own a Ferrari, so you want to earn enough money to be able to achieve that. Whatever you like, just pick something, whether it be a career or a thing, something you want to work towards. Maybe set that as the background on your phone or your computer, so that each time you log on every day you can remind yourself. Create a vision board if you like. There's a lot of instructions out there on how to do that. As long as you've got something that's bringing you back and focusing you, then it can help to drive you forward. And you listen to some great motivational speakers like Arnold Schwarzenegger. They'll say, don't listen to the naysayers. Well, use that as a motivation to help move you forward. If they're saying you can't do it because of this or that, excellent, that's a great hint of where you need to go next. So now, if you are moving forward into trying to achieve one of those dreams, you need to potentially budget money and your time to be able to achieve the goals you want to. So the way they're related is that, first of all, the first step in achieving either of those is to have a very honest review of how you're using your time and where all your money's going. It's easiest to start by explaining this from a financial perspective, and then I'll move back to explaining it from a time management perspective. With money, one of the first things we say to people to help them create an effective budget is to get out their old bank statements for the last year and look at where all their money's gone. How much is rent or mortgage? How much are your utility bills? How much is your mobile phone, your internet, that is? Gas, electricity, that's what I mean by utilities. And then how much is your grocery spending? You can break that down into junk food and other treats, if you know what I mean. Then you can also look at fuel. And don't forget the really important ones. This is what makes or breaks the budget for most people, is your car rego and Christmas presents and holidays. They all need to be put in there. And if you itemize, figure out, make a list, put up the top your income, so that's your wage each fortnight, maybe some shares if you're lucky, the income that comes from that once a quarter, and then also maybe about September, when you get it done, your tax return, hopefully. So maybe you want to do one of those smart things and ask your employer to hold on to an extra 2% for you, so that every year you get a little bonus there. Cool, good idea. So then we itemise those things. Say you might want to do the maths to figure it all out fortnightly. It's usually a good way to, easy way to understand it at a glance. So your income, and then you can have a subcategory of different types of expenses, and then maybe recreation. And you can do your subtotals at the bottom. You know, use Excel if you like, or Google Sheets, whatever, and you can figure out on another YouTube video how you can set that up to automatically subtotal at the bottom the income and the expenses. Then you want to have your opening balance and your opening balance plus the rest of your income for the fortnight minus your expenses. Most people will find that their expenses exceed their income. This is normal. We live to our means. That's just what happens, whether you earn the average wage or below average wage, or you're earning six figures. Good on you. So then we can look at it and see where our money's going and where we might be able to find some areas that we can improve. But and I'll briefly complete the talk on budgeting before we then move on to time budgeting. For your finances, it's really important then to shift into a financial plan for a year. Have your month up the top, January, February, September, October, November, December, and all those same columns down the side, and subtotals there, so that for each month you can see the expenses for that month and the amount left over. This is where a lot of people get into trouble with budgeting, is when it comes to Rego and Christmas. So if I bunch my Rego and Christmas all up that end, and I don't have that tax return there, then you'll notice that there's a big, huge dent all at one time of year. Obviously, if you spread those expenses out, so your Rego's not near your Christmas, and your holidays at another time, maybe you might like to get away in the winter to somewhere warmer. So that'll be for us people below the equator. That'll be a really good way to balance your budget too. But another good way is to have as I mentioned before, is to have the Rego after the tax return. Now, a lot of people make this, this is where the crucial mistake in financial planning personally for a year happens, is that they will have a negative balance. As I said before, maybe you've got a credit card and you can handle going into minus $100 or whatever it's going to be when you have your Rego, and then you can make up for it the following fortnight. That's fine. But it's really important to notice that if I put the Rego here or in this month or in this month, it can make a massive difference on the total negative balance. And that's going to make a massive difference on how much your repayments are on your credit card. But also, if you're clever, it can make a massive difference on how you balance the books, because if you put things at the right time of year, it'll all balance a lot easier. And if my most expensive month in a year is, say, $4,000 with my rent and utilities and Rego and registration fees and all these other things, insurances coming at the same time, then that maximum amount is what I need to have in my bank account, otherwise I'm broke. So if I pay all that, and then a few months later, maybe 6 months later, I've got like $1,000 spare in my account, I'm like, hey, I don't have any big expenses coming for a while, great, I can buy the new fruit product, or the new one of these that I'm talking to you through, then that would look cool. I've got plenty of time before the big expenses come around. But if we don't have a financial plan, you might not have actually realized that you needed that money. You needed to build up to $1,200, $1,500, $1,700, so that you could slowly get to that point of being at that big month ready for all those massive expenses. Similarly, there is a bit of financial plan, long-term planning of time management that comes into play. With time management, it's really good to do an ideal week plan where you have your subject schedule if you're at uni or school, and then maybe your work schedule if you do some after-hours work, maybe the sports you do. Put all those things into your ideal week plan, Monday to Sunday. Break it down by a half-hour slots basically, and even be really honest with yourself. Put in there how much time you spend in the shower, how much your time spent on Facebooky calls, and all of those things. And then you might want to download some apps to measure the time and remind you not to use it as much. Once you've got a idealized plan, you can plan, okay, well, if I want to achieve this, if I want that Ferrari, or I want to get that good mark so I can go to university and be a veterinary surgeon or whatever, then most of us know that you need to spend about this much time on your study and on your work and on your cleaning and as well, importantly, on your recreation, on spending time with your friends and your family. So once you've got all that locked into an ideal week plan, then remember that it doesn't have to be locked in. It is an idealized week plan. You've done your time budget to see where all your time goes. You've reevaluated that and challenged yourself and said, maybe I don't want to spend so much time on these apps or on TV or whatever else, looking at Netflix. And then you've figured out how you're going to run it ideally. Put that up somewhere where you're going to see it every morning, whether that's on your mirror as you're getting dressed in the morning, on your fridge, whatever works. And each day you're going to have to adjust it to be a highly functional person. A really good example is a certain business-oriented email program that I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. They have the default view is a week tour view. You can click on the thing to look at a month tour view and see where all the appointments are. But in that week tour view, it'll have all the appointments that are already in there, and then on the side it'll have a task list. So if each morning you look at your ideal week plan and go, okay, here's what I had planned to ideally do today, but life changes, things come up. You might have to go to the doctor, you might have an exam, you might have to look after your kids that day. Then you can look at it and go, okay, where can I slot these things that I was going to do today into another time slot? You can also look at your task list and say, can I shove that in here, that in there? And that way you can be a really highly effective, functional, high-achieving person. You can live up to that motivation, achieve those dreams, and operate at your peak performance. So now I hope you can see how time management, having an ideal week plan, is like having a budget and a financial plan so that we can long-term plan to achieve these things. People don't just do it automatically. These techniques that I'm talking about in detail here are some of the things that we notice in highly effective people. You don't just get out of bed one day and become Donald Trump and become really successful, maybe debatably, in real estate. But,